The restaurant industry continues to shift its focus, everything from workforce, technology. We're seeing menu innovations of all types. And today on the Barron Report, we're going to dive right into it. My name is Paul Barron, and this is the Barron Report. Okay, so you guys have been kind of, I've been getting a lot of feedback both on Twitter. I've got several emails from many of the show listeners and watchers. And the focus of the questions, I guess, and the request was we want more executives on that are talking about things that they actually changed within their organization that address some of the big cornerstones of the restaurant industry, and workforce tech and menu innovation is probably, if not the biggest parts of what we're seeing the most innovations on now and today. So with me today, I've got Paul Macaluso, who is the president and CEO of Another Broken Egg. Great to have you on the show, Paul.
Thank you. Great to be here. I appreciate it.
Excellent. In the pre-show, I was, and I had done some research when we originally asked you to be on one of our other sessions over on Recover America, and had done some background work on you, and I just kept seeing brands that I recognized and had worked with over the years, and then found out that we've known a lot of the same people. So it's great to have you on the show and in the inner circle here at Foodable Network.
Right, exactly. It's a big industry, but a small industry when you really start connecting all the dots. And like you, I've been in the industry for quite a while, so it sounds like we have a lot of mutual connections.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Paul, you took over the post at Another Broken Egg about a year ago.
Right.
And within that year, obviously now you're taking on the CEO position, and wham, here comes the biggest crisis the industry has ever faced. Let's get into some of the immediate changes that you enacted that really kind of changed the face of what this brand is about. Tell me a little bit about Another Broken Egg, kind of before and now after.
Yeah, great. So when I joined the company, we had just under 70 units, about 90% franchised. We have some companies, cafes, mostly in the Southeast. We're in 13 states, but mostly concentrated in the Southeast. Incredible brand with a great menu, really elevated menu, full bar. So alcohol is a big part of the brand. It was founded just outside of New Orleans. So daytime only, concept. We're open 7 to 2. So alcohol's been a big part of the brand, and great food. And it was interesting because I spent all my career up until this point, almost 30 years in the industry, in QSR and fast casual brands. So this is my first full service brand that I worked in. And when I joined the company, I was struck by how we really didn't have any to-go business, takeout, not using third-party delivery at all, not doing online ordering. And when I asked those questions, I was told by the team, well, we really haven't had to go there. We really focused on our in-store guests, the brunch experience. And, we've had positive comps and positive guest counts for 5 years. We haven't needed to. So I was a little curious about that, but, I was just kind of getting my hands around the business. And then, as you said, when March came and we had shutdowns and we could only have to go, we were really caught, in a precarious position. Most of our cafes closed across the system, franchise ones did. We kept our company stores open just to try some things. And we quickly got into third-party delivery. I had some previous, relationships with third-party delivery companies because of other brands I'd been on. So we quickly enacted DoorDash and Uber Eats, and then we got in and going after Olo through online ordering through Olo.
Right.
And thank goodness we got those going because, not to get too much ahead of it, those were a big part of what helped us.
It's a huge, and you're right, it's a huge shift especially for brands that have not, necessarily either one had that in the strategy or in some cases not even within their operational infrastructure to kind of move in that direction. I'm kind of curious, what is the mix between franchise and corporate stores?
So we are at about, we just opened our 9th company store last week. And we have 71 total. So we're at about, what's the math there? Maybe 15% company.
Okay. How has been the reaction of some of the modifications that you guys have made from the franchise community? Because that, we see that both positive and negative across many different brands, depends on who you talk to.
Yep. The response has been pretty typical in terms of my experience with other brands. You have you have a group of franchisees that are typically on the leading edge, that are right there along with you as the company
Yeah.
wanting to try stuff, sometimes even bringing new ideas. So we've had about 15-20% that were right along with us and wanted to do anything they could. There's a majority, probably the other 50-60% that are going to follow along once they see a couple other franchisees do it. And then there's always the last few percent that are a little bit more resistant to change, a little bit more concerned about the way we used to do things. So we've
Right.
had a pretty typical response with regard to our franchisees. What I will say, though, is because the to-go business has taken off so much for us, and now, at least for the time being, we're open at most of the time in full capacity for dining rooms. So this to-go business is now incremental. We're seeing actually positive same-store sales across the system.
Wow. Okay.
In some cases, double-digit. Most of the franchisees now are very eager to participate in this because of how strong the business has performed.
Yeah, yeah, and that's it's kind of interesting. We're seeing exactly what you're reporting is kind of the haves and the have-nots of the industry right now.
Yeah.
Brands that were able to pivot or were already in a very good position for curbside takeout, online e-commerce, all the systems were in place. Those are doing fairly well because we've seen such a drop in terms of competition, especially from casual dining and full-service dining. We've seen so many closures, and the market has really kind of shrunk, so it's left a few players that are essentially dominating now. I want to talk to you about some of the technology shifts, because you had to jump in pretty quickly, kind of with both feet forward, that you did. And for our listeners and viewers, most of them, either one, they're still hanging on, maybe they're still in the process of trying to figure out how they're going to move forward and whether or not they should hold on to this whole idea of off-premise. Your thoughts on the technology stack and if this is a long-term play?
Yeah, so we had to jump in a lot of different areas, and my experience here and also at previous brands. We talked a little bit about my background. I was at Focus Brands for many years, and really learned a lot about the benefits and influences of technology. A lot of those brands were really on the leading edge, so I was able to bring some of that thinking over here, and everything from QR codes for menus, right? Because sanitation with our menus are reused, and so we had to come up with a solution there. We have now we have payment at the table rather than taking someone's credit card and a check, like a little check divider, and then bringing it back to them. So we've implemented technology there for pay at the table. And obviously all the third-party delivery technology and how to operationalize that, make that as smooth as possible. So it's been a huge part, embracing technology, reaching out to vendors to help us with that, moving quickly, trying some things very quickly. And not everything worked. We tried a few things that did not work, but that's okay. We learned some things. We were able to adapt. And I do think it's a big part of our future. I do think, one of the benefits that we're seeing is a lot more people tried delivery and tried third-party delivery than had done previously, and so it's a bigger audience, it's a bigger group, and so we're in it to stay. We've invested in our packaging to make sure we're delivering a great experience in terms of the food that gets delivered to people. We've implemented new procedures operationally. We have a dedicated, basically what we're calling a to-go specialist. That's all their job is to make sure orders are entered properly, they're packaged properly, they're handled properly. So we've had to change our staffing a little bit and our operational procedures because we do think this incremental business is here to stay. And another part of our business, I think, has changed in a positive way and grown in a positive way. Not necessarily technology, so I'll save that. I think you're going to ask that, but there have been some changes that I think are going to be permanent for us in a good way.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're leading toward operational changes and also workforce changes, which we'll dive into as well. But operationally, we are seeing concepts that are implementing everything from curbside to multi-point delivery, even changing the domination of third-party delivery to even some direct delivery, or at least solutions or enhancements to how they can entice customers to do more direct to restaurant takeout. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, especially as this market grows, I mean, now we've been 8 months into it, but I feel like it's already like 5 years in terms of
Right.
advancements around all of the things that are happening with these brands. Where do you think that's going to go in terms of an operational standard for your brand?
Yeah, I definitely think it will stick around, and we're preparing for that. We've even started looking at some changes to the prototype,
Yep.
just because we want to make sure we're setting ourselves up the best as possible. As I mentioned, we just
Hmm.
opened a store last week, and we have a dedicated entrance there just for to go.
For to go. Yeah.
Just because we just know there's people coming in to be seated or wait,
Hmm.
and we got to have a separate entrance. It helps from efficiency standpoint for to go, and where do
Right.
we store those items? How do we make sure they stay warm? All those things we've been thinking through. So operationally, the to go business has been a big shift for us.
Has curbside been a boom for you in the locations that you could implement it? How did that roll out for you?
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of our cafes didn't have the ability to do curbside just because we hadn't really structured it properly in the leases. And sometimes
Sure.
if you don't have those rights, it's tough to get landlords to agree. We were able to shift in a handful of cafes. It's been a meaningful part of the business in those cafes where we have dedicated parking
Interesting.
spots, and we've called out all the mechanics how to do curbside pickup. We're obviously adding it to all future openings to make
Yeah.
sure we have those spots reserved, and still trying to work with our landlords to get those added. I do think curbside is important for us and our brand. Again, we are a full service, so it's nice a touch for us so that we can come out and deliver that service
Yeah.
element of bringing the food out to people, and that in a little bit of an elevated way rather than them having to get out of their car and walk in. We don't have drive-throughs, we don't have pickup windows, so
Hmm.
curbside I think is a real nice touch for us.
Yeah, it was one of the, we just finished up some data and some study around some of the direct takeout and delivery models that were being implemented and what was working with consumers. And curbside was one that was actually kind of a surprising winner in terms of how customers looked at it, from a sentiment standpoint. The distancing, not having to go into the restaurant,
Yeah.
all those benefits that you get through kind of the social distancing, but there's also some ancillary benefits just through pickup and delivery. It just speeds things up in most cases. When you look at kind of the evolution of where the restaurant industry is going, a lot of operational changes have happened. Technology is now pretty much in place for those who are ahead of the curve. And I
Yeah.
think within the next maybe 6 months, everybody that's going to be in the game for a long term has probably made their moves from a technology standpoint. Now it's just about increasing efficiencies. But if
Yeah.
you look at the design framework and the unit economics with real estate, and especially in site selection, how do you guys see your strategy going forward? Because that's going to really be a lot of brands are going a lot of different directions, everything from
Yeah.
ghost to virtual, you name it. What are you
Right.
guys planning over there?
Right. So it's an interesting question because there's so many ways this could go. But I think what's going to work for us is probably a little different than what most people are experiencing. Because brunch is such an experience.
Yeah.
We still see that people really want, by and large, to come in to the cafe and have that
Right.
experience.
Mhm.
To go is still nice, and we're providing that solution. It went from 2% of our business to 15% of our business, so it's grown significantly.
Wow.
But the other parts of our business that are growing significantly are our alcohol business, which has almost doubled,
Hmm.
which was already a good chunk of business, and
Right.
also the desire to be on our patios. Most of our cafes have really nice patios, so
Yeah.
we're doubling down there, and so it really bringing the bar forward, making sure we really represent our bar business, and investing in more innovation around that, and in the staffing of our bars. We used to have our bartenders take care of the to-go stuff, because it
Right.
was such a small part. The bartender would bag
Hmm.
orders. And we don't have that. It's such a big part of our business. We have a dedicated person because with the bartender focused on selling alcohol and providing great service. So, um, investing in our bars, making sure that those look great in our prototype, and then expanding our patios as much as we can. because people want to be outside. We want to make sure our
Right.
patios are 3-season patios. So even in the northern climates, we can still use them at certain times of year, closing them in, having heaters, making people feel safer, in the
Yeah.
patio. We definitely have seen feedback that people feel better about eating outside. And so that's where we're investing. That's what we're really focused on, optimizing those parts of our business.
Yeah. And I think that it's interesting because we are seeing a lot of restaurants who are almost abandoning in-room dining or in-restaurant dining, and just because they're concerned about the next 18 months as being a very constricted scenario. With that
Right.
being the case in many states, and you guys being multi-state, how many states are you in now?
We're in 13.
Okay. All right. So you could have some exposure there. Um,
Yep.
Curious, is there any plans to extend your day part with alcohol being kind of coming front and center, being able to extend that menu into the evening and go after that business, which has not necessarily been you guys' MO?
Yeah. At this point, I would say nothing's off the table. We've learned a lot. We've had to be very flexible. We tried
Right.
everything. We were down to just 4 cafes open and trying
Yep.
everything we could. We tried a toilet paper promotion, we tried meal kits. Um, we're open to that. The brand has tried it in the past, but I
Yeah.
think these are different times. I definitely think these are
Exactly.
different times.
Yeah.
So it's not something I would say is on my top 10 list to investigate,
Yeah.
but it certainly will be. We'll give it some additional thought this next year to expanding the day part, expanding into maybe afternoon or evening business. We've got some challenges with the name. I think a lot of people with another broken egg, with egg being in our name, people really associate us more with breakfast and brunch. But we do have the other items on our menu, which are very much would resonate. Shrimp and grits and chicken and waffles, and there's lots of
Right.
great
Sure.
products on our menu that people would, I think, would eat for an evening occasion. So not a huge priority for us, but certainly something we're keeping our eye on.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so let's break into kind of the staffing component and also the menu development that you guys had shifted into. First question is, when you look at labor today, obviously it's completely different landscape than it was in March of this year,
Yeah.
when labor was very low, unemployment was almost non-existent, and it was hard. It was hard for any restaurant to get good
Yeah.
help. What is your position today on labor moving forward, especially with a lot of the states looming in on the $15 an hour minimum wage, and likely, we could see that become a national minimum wage
Yeah.
maybe in this administration coming forward. What are your thoughts on how to deal with labor in the restaurant industry with those kind of scenarios playing out?
Yeah, we actually the state with the most another broken egg cafes is Florida. We have 18, and that state just passed the minimum wage
Yep.
increase to
Yep.
$15 by 2026. So certainly we're aware of it. We have company stores in the state as well as franchise cafes in the state. So we're very aware of that. We're developing strategies to put behind that, and it's definitely concerning. I don't with our price point and our staffing model being full service and a lot of tip wage employees, it's not as impactful as it would be for like a QSR brand. Other brands I work for that I think would be even more of a concern. But it's definitely something we've got to think through. And as I mentioned, we're not. With the to-go business, we are saving a little labor because it's not like someone that's sitting at a table where you need to come back and get them
Exactly.
refills or continue to engage with them. So there is a little bit of labor savings with regard to moving our to-go business from 2 to 15%. That's helpful with regard to costs. But as we continue to look at technology, we're looking at technology with a lens of how to improve the labor percentage and with that in mind over the next few years. So we're going to continue to look at technology as ways to optimize the business.
Yeah, well, efficiencies are going to come into play. I think there's a lot of software and tech companies out there that are really playing into this now, because when the labor pool starts to grow in terms of access, meaning there's more people out looking for work, efficiencies and being able to make sure you've got the right staff and the best staff is a very key part of your business going forward. It's different when you have to hire anybody that walks in versus
Right.
when you're going, hey, let's get the best of the best to kind of help us move this brand to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
We just, as I mentioned, we've opened some stores, both the franchisees and company. We've opened some stores in the last few months. And I think, with the way the business has responded in the last several months with the positive sales we've seen, more of our existing franchisees are more interested in opening more stores, looking at second generation space that's become available. As you mentioned, there have been some closures. So it's providing opportunities for brands like ours that are growing. We've opened a couple company stores in the last few months. We've got one opening in December. And our experience over the last several months has been, just to your point, we've seen a lot more candidates. We're seeing a lot better quality candidates. We're upgrading talent in our existing cafes. So this is a good time to really, strengthen our teams, get the best possible team members working for us, and improve our overall operation.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think those are, when you look at kind of the controllables, especially in an operation like yourself, it's going to be a big one. I mean, real estate's going to be an interesting thing to play out in the coming years if this is going to have a long-term effect on real estate. I think it's still, the jury's still out on that. Some people think it's just, it's barely touching it. Some people will say it's just, it's a catastrophe. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, you're obviously in markets that are a little different than some of the urbanized markets where maybe many of the fast casuals kind of live and breathe, or the independents. What are you seeing in terms of real estate for potential growth?
Yeah, we're seeing, we're mostly in the Southeast, and we're not really in a lot of the bigger urban markets. So our experience is probably a little different, to your point. What we are seeing is some availability of second generation space I mentioned, and we are seeing some willingness by those landlords to help with some TI dollars to convert a space. A slight deterioration in rents, but nothing real significant. We're not seeing any massive declines in rents or anything. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what the next 6 months holds. Still a great market for us to expand in. We're very comfortable with, again, how the business is performing and the economics.
Yeah, for sure. Culinary wise, a lot of chefs out of work now, have moved away from, and sous chefs, secondary line cooks, those kind of people that have kind of pulled over from what was the high volume independent restaurant that is probably taking the brunt of this in terms of closure issues.
Right.
Is that opening up opportunities to up the culinary level for a restaurant like yours?
I think so. We've, as I mentioned, we've opened some new stores, and we've seen an influx of those. We have, every one of our cafes has a general manager and a kitchen manager because of the elevated nature of our menu. Our food is is very culinary forward. So there's a certain skill level that's needed to cook our food, and so we're seeing more talent come into those selection opportunities, and we're seeing more people come in and want to be a part of our brand. And we have the benefit of only being open from 7 to 2 also, so the kind of the people can get home and be with their kids at night.
Right.
So there's also a standard of living that people really enjoy with our brand. And so if they're out in the market and they're looking for a new job, we stand out. We tend to stand out because of those things.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. Well, I've been to a few of your cafes, and I love them. It's always fun. I wish that I could go more often, but under the circumstances, kind of crazy.
Right.
One last question for you, and that is, when you look, because you're obviously, when you're in the C-suite, things are a little different there, especially in times like this. When you kind of set back and look at long-term strategy, or kind of where are we going to be in the next 2, 3, 5 years, what are, maybe if there is 1 or 2 things that really worry you, if you look at it and say to your staff, you're just kind of start planting that seed, we need to be watching out for X. What do you feel like that is?
Yeah, there are lots of concerns. I think more concerns now than ever before, just because of the uncertainty of what's going to happen. Are we going to have another shutdown? We did see So obviously, we've seen some states shut down. So, losing momentum is incredibly challenging. This brand has been growing, and that's why I joined, and was very excited about the growth. And now we are growing again. And I think so many opportunities become available with growth, both professionally and the momentum you gain with the business. So, one of my main kind of concerns today is just keeping the growth going, and hopefully we don't have another shutdown, and we can keep that positivity going. As I look to the future, I do think your question about labor is probably one of the bigger concerns, right? That how do we make the economics continue to work for franchisees? We're a big franchise brand, 85% franchise. And we want to make that opportunity work for franchisees. That they only grow if it's a profitable proposition for them. So we've got to make sure we're working hand in hand with them to make sure the economics of this business really work for them. They do today. We think they're going to be even stronger in the short term because of our sales growth, but the labor component is certainly a concern.
Yeah. Well, and as we see, whether it's unemployment or we do see another stimulus coming down the road, I mean, that's been one of the arguments, even to the restaurants that I've talked with, is in many cases, people just, they're at this point, they're not coming back to work because they end up being on unemployment for almost the same amount they would have made. So that creates a very interesting vacuum in the industry. And I think a lot of operators are trying to navigate that right now because of the variations. And then you have retraining. If you were in the process of laying people off and then trying to get them back in, there's a lot of scenarios there. Paul Macaluso, it's been great having you on the show.
Thank
CEO
you.
of Another Broken Egg. Thanks for stopping in.
Appreciate it, Paul. Thank you.
All right. So again, thank you guys for listening in. Whether you're listening in on the podcast over on one of the podcast platforms, if it's iTunes, Spotify, maybe over on Amazon Music, make sure and leave us a rating. That's how we kind of get feedback from you, our audience. And then if you're over on YouTube and you love what you hear and see, make sure and share this video with colleagues that are in the industry that you want to get exposed to maybe some tips and tricks and things that some of the best minds in the industry are revealing here on the Barron Report. If you have a great show idea or someone you think should be on our show, just shoot an email to us at producer@foodabletv.com, and you can hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. It's been great seeing you guys again. Stay safe. This is the Barron Report. We'll catch you next time.